I have to say. I want you to look carefully at these 3 pictures of dogs, and I will tell you a little about each of them. The first one is called Custard. He joined my family when he was 8 weeks old and was a much loved Shar-Pei. He lived a full life and was adored by everyone he met. I have some health problems and he was my companion. He helped ease my pain and made me smile on days when it felt far from what I wanted to do. He was well behaved and had everything he could ever need in life. When he reached the age of 13 and time was no longer on his side, I had to make a decision regarding his future. He was old and had become very sick. He was tired. I fretted for weeks about what to do. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I spoke to friends, and someone whose advice I value told me that he had never regretted one dog he had let go a day too early, but he had always regretted those he let go a day too late. I understood that this was not about me, it was about him. I made the decision to let him go, despite every being in my body saying hang on to him for just a little while longer. I spent 48 hours sleeping on the floor next to him, talking to him, stroking him and telling him how precious he was. Custer passed away in his home, surrounded by the people who loved him most. The hands that held him were mine. The last touch he felt was mine. The last voice he heard was mine. I wrote him a letter and put that and a tree and his favourite toy with him when he had passed over. He looked peaceful and at rest. He looked like the beautiful dog he always had. But it made it no less painful. I have cried and torn myself apart as to whether it was the right decision. But as the time has gone on, I've been able to start to come to terms with losing my boy, because I could give him the dignified end he deserved. And so I will never forget him and probably never quite get over it. But I will be able to live with myself. Custer was loved and he knew it. The second picture is Wonky. She joined my family at the approximate age of 18 as a long-term foster. She was an old, disabled Chihuahua that nobody wanted. She exhibited some signs that her life had not been easy, but we will never know what she had been through. The last year of her life was spent in great comfort. She was loved and cared for and had everything a dog could need. Last Friday, she had a fit, and I had to make a final decision for her. Again, I went through the questions as I had some months before with Custard. Again, I could make that decision knowing it was the right one for her and that I was giving her the dignified end to her life that she deserved. It hurt as much as losing Custard did, but in time I will be able to live with myself. Wonky was loved and she knew it. This final picture is Trigger. Trigger joined his family as a young pup. He was loved and adored by everyone he met. His mum is not dissimilar to me, an ordinary woman, a similar age, some health issues, and a dog that she loved with all her heart, who was her friend and companion. The difference is that Trigger, who had never put a foot wrong, was seized under this barbaric law and taken from his mum and his home, and he never walked back through that door again. His mum loved him like I loved my dogs. She grieves for him like I grieve for mine. She cries and feels despair like I do. But unlike me, she made no decisions about her dog from the day he was taken away. She didn't hold his head, kiss his nose and tell him she loved him as he passed. She didn't even know the date until weeks later. She had to face a battle and a huge bill just to get his body back for cremation. The only thing she could do, the only control that she could have should be. I made those decisions and I helped my dogs. Trigger died away from those he loved. His mum will never get over that. And to be honest, those of us that have been with her every step of the way of what has been one of the most heart-rending cases I've ever been involved with will probably never get over it either. And do you know the worst thing is that I know she feels guilty about this, and she shouldn't, because none of it is her fault. The point I want to make is, what's the difference? Look at the pictures. There's no difference. These are just 3 dogs, all loved the same. So why is it okay for one of them to be taken away for looking a certain way and then never come home again? Somebody tell me why, because I don't know. I don't care if you love dogs, cats, snakes or goldfish. I don't care if you don't really like animals at all. I don't care if you're a vegan or a meat eater, because that's your choice. Whether you care about the dogs themselves is not relevant really. Put all that aside and just ask yourself, is this right? And I defy you to say that it is. So it's as simple as that. It just isn't right.
In August, we were asked to assist with a young abandoned pet dog named Benji, who had the misfortune to be taken to a pound in the Nottingham, Derbyshire area, having been found roaming on his own. Benji was thought to be under a year old, and his previous owner had mistakenly listed his breed type as pit bull on his microchip details. This is Benji here. During the space of a few weeks, we tried very hard, along with a caring rescuer, to save Benji's life when he was caught in the cruel and unfair enforcement of BSL. Benji was offered a safe rescue space, and in fact he was also offered a permanent home with the rescuer who offered to adopt him. As he had been labelled pit bull on his microchip details, Benji came to the attention of the authorities, and therefore the only way to dispel this dangerous label was to assist the rescuer by helping to provide an independent breed identification assessment to ascertain if he was indeed of prohibited type. The breed ID was carried out on the 20th of August by an expert, and in his opinion, Benji was not of pit bull type. Yet on Friday, the 23rd of August this year, the day before Benji was due to start his new happy life, when he was to be adopted with rescue backup out of the pound, police seized him as a potential banned breed. We sent a copy of the independent breed ID report to the dog legislation officers involved and liaised with them regarding a possible future for young Benji. We were informed on the 6th of September that Benji, on advice from the Nottinghamshire Police legal team, had been put to sleep. Benji had never done anything wrong. He was just a stray dog like many others. Those who had come into contact with Benji said he was gentle and friendly. He would have made a wonderful companion pet to the rescuer who tried so hard to save him. Benji deserved a life, a future, a family. He deserved to be taken care of, to have enough to eat, to have a nice cosy bed to lie in, and he deserved a chance. We don't know how long Benji had roamed by himself, and he caused no trouble doing so. He was just searching for someone to love him. Benji didn't ask for much in life, and he received so little kindness, which you would expect in a country like ours that prides itself on having so-called civilised and humane animal welfare laws. Save for a few people who desperately wanted Benji to have the chance to become a healthy, happy dog with a home of his own, he was shut out like he didn't matter. Cast aside and killed by those who have created the laws we live by, and which we are expected to uphold and be proud of, the laws that are supposed to respect all life, yet it seems breed-specific law means some lives are less important. Now he is gone forever, killed by BSL. Benji will never know what it would be like to be loved unconditionally and to enjoy the fun of being cared for, to play ball, to be cherished and to be part of his own family. Rest in peace, lovely lad. You deserved so much better. Run free now and make friends at the bridge. You will never be forgotten. And we wish you had made it to those green pastures and the life ahead of you that was just out of reach by one day. I would also like to mention Lynch and Fudge and Spud and Spike and Cadbury and Capone and Puppy Fudge and Lennox and the many other nameless dogs and puppies that are being singled out in pounds and rescue centres up and down the country day in and day out simply because someone somewhere is enforcing a bad law because our government is ignorant and brutal, and instead of pushing for positive change that would benefit us all, including our canine best friends, the killing of the vulnerable is perpetuated, rather than education which would save lives and would save the voiceless victims that are placed out of reach of safety, as though their lives are unworthy, and therefore mercy, compassion, kindness and justice will not be offered to them. This is not fair law. Please speak up for them. Their deaths must not be in vain. And please help to end BSL. Thank you.
Kids do that now,
It's a bit noisy here. And I've just come along here just to talk generally about this law the way I see it. And here I am in London. Who'd have believed it? See that over there? Me and my cousin used to play down there when we were kids. No BSL then. And we had the dog with us. Now all you people all come along here to protest against the law you've given up the time to come here. Protest against the law of this land. This law has caused more human misery and anguish in this country than I've ever seen in my lifetime. BSL, breed-specific legislation. Now if you explain this to anyone who's never heard of it before, and I've spoken to a few people, they shake their heads in disbelief. They say, no, you can't, you're joking. Really? Yes. Put in simple terms, it means that if your dog looks a certain way, then it's deemed as dangerous and we're going to take it away and we're going to kill it. And they say no. It's as simple as that. And the way they do this, the way they determine this dangerous dog, is they measure it up with a dressmaker's tape measure. They measure its legs, its shoulder, I don't know, it means nothing. They look at certain characteristics, its eyes, ears, tail. And if it comes into these criteria, it's dangerous. Rubbish! Absolute rubbish. Twaddle. Utter twaddle. Imagine this. Some guy gets arrested for doing a murder. He's convicted. And they say, we've measured this bloke, he's over 6 feet tall. Anyone over 6 feet is a killer, round them all up, bang them away. If a cow has got an unusually long face, it's a horse. What I've just said is just so stupid, based on no facts, no common sense, and yet this government is using that kind of thinking to enforce a law. A law! Can you believe it? It's just unbelievable. That kind of thinking belongs in the past, in the distant past, in the dark ages, not 2013. Pit bulls. Pit bull terriers. Probably the most misunderstood dog in the world. What is a pit bull? Well, it's just a dog. It's just a dog. It likes playing with its toys. It likes chasing balls. It likes going for walks. If you treat that dog badly, that dog will react badly. If you treat the dog with kindness and love, that dog will repay that love 100-fold. And this applies to all dogs. Pit bull types. Now we get to it. Pit bull type is what the authorities deem to be dangerous. what they say is a bit more tight. And they're not too fussy about this at all. If it falls within certain parameters, it's dead. Kill it. Kill. Kill. Just kill everything. That's the answer. Kill. There was a case of a bloke who had his dog seized from the back of his car. He was caught in a roadblock for something else. They saw the dog in the back seat and they said, "We've reason to suspect this dog is dangerous." What reason? The dog was crossed between a Great Dane and a Labrador. They seized the dog. This man and his dog were inseparable. He lives for the dog. He fought long and hard to get his dog back. He spent all his money, he ruined himself. He became a broken man. This is the kind of inhumanity that the government don't want to know about. This is the human side of things. He got his dog back in a bin bag. This law is wrong. The police can go into your home and take your dog away on the end of a catch pole. For what? Having the wrong shaped face? There's been case after heartbreaking case of people, families torn apart. There's been suicides, there's been breakdowns because of this law. Heartbroken owners have pleaded with the authorities to please send back the body of our dog. But that's been refused, that request. And in my opinion, the reason for that is for the appalling condition of the body. Not only are they killed, these dogs are made to suffer before as well. People talk to me about dog breeding, how they were bred, what they were originally bred for. They were bred for hunting, they were bred for killing. I don't buy that. Dogs evolve like every other living thing over years, over a long period. Living beings evolve, they're subject to evolution. They change to suit their circumstances. They adapt, they reinvent themselves to be an integral part of an ever-changing world. So they've been no relation to their ancestors at all. People are treated like criminals for this. People are treated like criminals. Imagine this. You're walking down the street, you see a couple of police cars outside a house, one at the back. There's several police trying to make an entrance. You're being told to think, what's going on here? Is it a siege? Kidnapping? Someone been murdered? Maybe it's a big drugs bust. No. The police are seizing the dog from an elderly widow. This actually happened. Let's get one thing straight. I'll say it slowly, in case there's anyone here who supports BSL. Very basic principle, the reason that what all this is about. Dogs are not born vicious. They're made that way. Just the same way you can make a dog be sociable and friendly. Dogs don't indulge in gratuitous violence for the hell of it, for kicks. Only humans do that. Staffordshire Bull Terriers, probably the most unlucky dog in the country. They're victims of a cruel irony because of the way they look. We know all about them, fantastic dogs. We know how good they are with children, they're legendary. We know that Victorians called them the nanny dogs because they were good with kids. The police are targeting them because of this pit bull type thing. They're killers. because of the way they look, but because, the reason they're doing that because they've been trained to be vicious because of the way they look. How ironic is that? I read a centre-page feature in a national newspaper. It was interviewing 4 young men living on a housing estate in North London, and they were openly bragging about how they trained their dogs to be vicious, to be weapon dogs, and for intimidation. Names and address supplied. The police were nowhere to be seen. Make what you want of that. They asked the guy, how do you train the dog to be vicious? Was he vicious when you got it? And he said, no, it's a puppy. Well, what did you do? Keep it in a cage, no human contact, not allowed in the house, no human contact at all. Don't feed it too much, so it's hungry all the time. And every time I let it out of the cage, I beat the hell out of it. Starvation and fear. That's the main problem if the dog gets vicious. Now the dog sees humans as the enemy, and then he takes it out on the streets. That's how these dogs have got a bad name. We hear reports of these terrible dog attacks. We see it in the papers. Young girl attacked in a house by a dog. We see the standard picture there, same one they always show, of the dog with its teeth bared, which we now know is a picture of Staffy sneezing. People say, well, you know, these dog attacks, what do you expect? That person has one of those awful dogs. No! That dog had one of those awful people. That dog had the misfortune of being owned by an idiot. This is not a dog problem, this is a people problem. All the bad things, all the murders, all the atrocities, every bad thing that's ever happened in this world has been caused by people. Animals don't cause problems, they don't know how to. They've got problems though. The biggest one is sharing the planet with us. You now have in this country an atmosphere of fear and paranoia that I've never seen the like of before because of this law. People are scared to take their dogs for a walk. That quintessential British thing where you take the dog for a walk around the block. They're fearful of a knock on the door. It's nothing short of a dog holocaust. Genocide of dogs. Let's take this holocaust to its logical conclusion, shall we? You wipe out all these dogs, the so-called pit bull types, wipe them out. But the antisocial owners and the irresponsible owners, they use them because they like the way they look. They look tough. Steffi don't know look tough. Put a study collar on it, the silver chain, walk down the street, we look hard, looking hard, looking hard. Wipe them all out. But they will see that the problem won't go away because the people that cause this problem will move on to another dog. Let's say Rottweilers. Wipe out the Rottweiler, kill them all the Rottweilers. Dobermans, kill them all. German Shepherds, kill them a lot. So in theory, you could end up with a country full of miniature poodles or something. And they'll have them on the chain, wouldn't they? Come down and you know. You can make them vicious. If, God forbid, BSL comes visiting you, comes knocking on your door, the full force of the law behind it, well, if I was in your shoes, I'd see that as a violation of my human rights. I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here. I don't want to be in London making speeches. I'll tell you what I do want. I want to live in a country where I don't need to. I look around and see all you people, you come to protest, to speak out in a country of free speech, supposedly, make people aware. And if you make enough people aware, then maybe, just maybe, there'll be a huge groundswell of public opinion. And hopefully one day someone in authority might just listen. I see the members of DDA Watch here. Dangerous Dogs Act Watch, who work tirelessly round the clock at huge personal sacrifice to help these poor victims of this law. And I know that they will fight on until their last breath, or until this insane law is ripped from the statute books, just as these innocent dogs are ripped away from their loving families. Have a nice day.